Hello, my name is Stephen Dunn. I'm gathered here with my colleagues, Zora, Anurag, David, and Esther. And today we're going to be presenting to you an innovative strategy to allow Intel to take its products to the next level. So the agenda that we have today to present this is we're going to take a look at the problem statement, and we're going to swap into some situation analysis, as well as take a deeper dive into the situation as a whole by looking at separate different alternatives. Then we'll present our recommendation as well as what the best plan of action would be moving forward. Now, the problem statement that we have here confronting us at Intel today is, should Intel extend its branding campaign to the mobile phone and cellular markets? So when making any marketing decision, the first thing we have to take a look at is the nature of demand. So as we can see from current marketing trends, we have a shift away from your typical PC devices towards a more mobile solution, right? So we can see here with mobile phones being sold at an increased rate over the last 5 years, there's been a stagnation of PC demands. And this is due to the buyer's appreciation of access from anywhere. So what is the extent of that demand? Well, as we've already touched on briefly, the market size is increasing and is growing. In fact, mobile phone units have increased from 108 million units sold 5 years ago to nearly 400 million sold 5 years later. Portable computers have almost increased 100% in the last 5 years. And personal digital assistants have gone from less than 1 million units sold in 1997 to over 12.5 million units sold in 2001. Intel, however, currently has 1% of the cellular chip market, but can be looking to expand as this field is clearly growing. Now, what about the competition? Well, the competition right now is fierce, but is constricted to a few companies all working towards the same common goal. So Texas Instruments owns about 50% of the market share on portable chips, while Qualcomm and Motorola own about 12% as well. Now, Intel has only 1%, as I stated in the last slide, of this market share, but we can see that these are our competitors, and maybe we can exploit that to our advantage. So what did they do to succeed and to get this particular market share that they currently have? Well, they expended much resources into research and development. He's allowed them to take over a large percentage of the market and to grow as companies forming new strategic solutions along the way. However, at Intel, we see an opportunity because as Intel itself is a massive, successful company, we also believe we can stave off any retaliation that can come our way from these particular competitors. Now let's do a little bit of a pest analysis to capture the overall trend of the market and to see what Intel itself would be up against in this current climate. So first, it's 2001, the dot-com bubble has just popped, and there are now a lot more regulations on technology companies than there were 5 years ago. That's the political aspect of things. However, technologically, this provides unlimited opportunities for growth. This is something that has not gone away since 1997. Now, a couple risks we may be facing are economic and social risks as well. So economically, there is a tentative nature to dilute shareholders' equity and company equity to the point of expanding our products into this new field. Socially, customers may be less inclined to buy a phone just because it has an Intel chip inside of it. However, given our past history as a company and the success that we've managed to accomplish in the last several decades allows us to believe that these hurdles are only short-term hurdles and can be well dealt with. So the environmental climate, as it currently stands in summary, is Intel owns about 80% of the PC chip market share. However, future trends dictate a move towards mobile devices and show a lucrative and growing market, something that Intel would be very wise to take full advantage of. As well as several more environmental changes that have been occurring within this mobile market are the ability to video conference with cell phones, send larger email files than previously done before, and then connect to 3G networks. So all in all, this marketing strategy shows a clear and positive movement for Intel to take into the future. So now I'd like to turn it over to Zora to elaborate more on this marketing strategy that we at Intel have.
Thank you, Stephen, for that pass. Intel is a mature brand looking to increase its market share. So one of the characteristics of the maturity stage is sales volume peaks and market saturation is reached. In the case of Intel, the sales of desktop computers is stagnating and market saturation for microprocessors has been reached. Another characteristic of the mature product life cycle is new competitors entering the market. Intel has faced many competitors over the years, such as AMD, IBM, Apple, and Motorola, all creating their own versions of the microprocessor chip. Finally, another characteristic of a mature product lifecycle is brand differentiation to maintain or increase market share. Intel is definitely looking to continually increase its market share, and in this case, it has entered non-PC markets by developing a processor which is used in several popular handheld computers, as well as developing new products for the cell phone market. So we were able to conduct a SWOT analysis for Intel. Some of the strengths analyzed for Intel are brand recognition and industry leader. In the early 2000s, Intel is one of the leading microprocessor companies with a market share of 78%, and it's the sixth most valuable brand in the world. Marketing is another strength, as Intel has had two successful marketing campaigns, such as the Red X campaign and the Intel Inside campaign. The Red X campaign was the first breakthrough marketing experiment undertaken by Intel to market directly to computer buyers instead of marketing to CIOs and IT managers. Some weaknesses. So some internal weaknesses identified for Intel are employee skepticism and a minor flaw in the Pentium processor, which led to negative publicity. When senior leaders initiated the Red X marketing campaign, there was significant skepticism among Intel managers about the idea of marketing directly to consumers. The company brand image was under fire in 1994 when an end user discovered a minor flaw in the new Pentium processor. After negative publicity spread about this incident, Intel decided to replace all processors on the market, even though the flaw affected a few isolated individuals. Next, we'll talk about opportunities. Intel has capitalized on many economic external opportunities. One is the creation of a co-op advertising program modeled after the types of programs used in packaged good industries. In this case, Intel's manufacturers would be able to accrue co-op advertising dollars on the basis of their purchase of Intel chips, and then these dollars could be used to pay for up to half the cost of any advertisement produced by the manufacturers, as long as they put Intel's logos on their ads and on their computers. The program launched in 1991 with 300 manufacturers on board, and by the end of the decade, more than 2,700 PC makers were participating in the program. Another economic opportunity Intel is looking into is a joint effort with Microsoft to enter the cell phone market by developing a template for cell phones using chips from Intel and software from Microsoft that would be licensed to phone manufacturers. And finally, let's talk about threats. As you can imagine, with any industry or market leader, there are going to be threats to the company. Intel has managed to respond to each threat with a counter response and has successfully maintained its market position over the years. The biggest threat to Intel's market share was in the mid-1990s when companies like Advanced Micro Devices and Texas Instruments produced their own microprocessor. And these microprocessor clones paved the way for an influx of cheap PCs into the market. Intel responded by entering the low-end market with its own Celeron processor. Another known threat was that the FTC, or the Federal Trade Commission, sued Intel for allegedly using coercive tactics to control intellectual property. Intel was able to successfully defend the suit. And finally, another major threat was in the 2000 when AMD briefly threatened Intel's technological dominance by being the first to break the 1 gigahertz barrier with a version of its Athlon chip. This was the first time in recent memory Intel had not been the fastest chip on the market, and so Intel quickly responded within a few days by releasing its own 1 gigahertz processor, and within a little more than a year, it became the first to introduce a 2 gigahertz chip. So we're going to talk about Intel's very own marketing mix, starting with the product. Intel offers a variety of products that are used as the building blocks for numerous electronic devices, but Intel is most well known for its microprocessor, which is a silicon chip that controls the processing of data in PCs, servers, workstations, and many other electronic devices. Intel's first chip was introduced in 1971. Intel has also instituted an overlapping product development cycle, which means Intel invests and develops 2 generations of chips at the same time. Intel has also expanded its offerings from processors to chips, motherboards, and most recently, flash memory. Intel has also created an umbrella brand with the logo Intel, the computer inside, to use for marketing successive generations of products. Next, we'll talk about price. Intel's full line of computer-related microprocessors range from $64 to $4,227. So now we're going to talk about promotion. As mentioned before, Intel has had many successful marketing campaigns. Intel's advertisements have become bolder and more creative over time. They started with newspaper ads, then moved on to TV and radio ads, to creating a 3-second animated jingle that is played at the end of every co-op ad, to moving from providing technical details to creating an emotional experience and demonstrating the ability of using cutting-edge technology. That's the jingle. So finally, we're going to talk about place. Intel typically does not have a place to sell its products in warehouses or in retail locations. The channel for distribution of its products is directly to original equipment manufacturers, partners, and to PC cell phone makers who use the chips in their end products. And now I'm going to pass it on to Esther.
Thank you, Sora. So now we're going to be talking about the different solutions that we came up with. Intel is a market leader in PC chips and has technological dominance over other players in that arena. The growth of cell phones and their increasing use as handheld devices for applications beyond calling made it a very lucrative arena for Intel to join in. Intel had strong competitors in TI like Motorola and Qualcomm. To increase Intel's share in cell phone chipset market, which is currently 1%, there could be a 2-phase solution. And this would be to create another chipset brand for cell phones backed with Intel safety and technology. To build a strong chipset brand, Intel needs to do the following. It needs to create another cell phone chipset, like, for example, Intel Mobile. Intel Mobile should be an exceptionally technologically enhanced product that can outperform the market's existing chips. And it also should do extensive survey and market research to see what applications the customer needs to run from a handheld device and pitch a marketing campaign accordingly by first pilot testing in small cities and then expanding the marketing campaign globally. And the second part of this solution, it would be to leverage the brand to reap higher profits. Intel is already a very recognizable brand, and it's up there at number 6 with Coke and Pepsi in terms of brand recognition, thanks to that little jingle. They have a 5-beat, 3-second jingle, like I mentioned, and the customer can instantly recognize it. For the Intel Mobile chipset, Intel should leverage some of its brand recognition. There are other prominent players like TI and Motorola present in this category with a much higher market share. Therefore, Intel needs to upgrade the features and potential of an existing strong image in a complementary campaign that will work in Intel's favor to market the Intel Mobile to gain the market share. The pros and cons of this solution, it's that for the pros, it's a very cohesive plan with a measurable and time-bound action plans. It will reduce advertising budgets since Intel can use the existing brand recognition. It will enable Intel to make early inroads in the market with just a 1% market share. The product will inherit features of reliability, safety, and technological superiority, which Intel has in the PC market. And it's going to be more cost-effective due to the lower marketing spending to achieve results, since the cell phone industry is highly price-sensitive and the research and development cost for developing chips rises steeply. This will essentially give Intel a price advantage in this market. And now for the cons. If the Intel mobile chipset fails in the market, it will dent the brand Intel has built over decades and jeopardize Intel's chip sales in the PC market. Also, it is highly unclear if people will even care what chip is inside their cell phones. Even if Intel manages to convey the message, it will come as a hefty price tag, which will shrink the Intel market margins for Intel Mobile. The second solution that we came up with is that Intel should not venture into the cell phone handheld devices chipset market using their brand image of a PC's leading processor manufacturer. While Intel needs to enter and capture market share in the handheld devices because they are the future products, Intel should not let the performance in the mobile market affect its image in the PC processor market. Therefore, it should use a completely different brand to enter the cell phone industry. Intel has had a lot of success with a co-op advertising strategy in PC. Therefore, it's easy for them to replicate the same model with the Intel Mobile and mobile cell phone OEMs. We're going to be addressing now the pros and cons of our second alternative. Well, the pros is to disconnect Intel's PC business from the cell phone chipset business. Therefore, an effect in Intel Mobile performance will not affect the Intel's processor market for the PC category. Also, suppose Intel can develop a new brand into a significant brand name. In that case, it will diversify Intel's portfolio. In addition, Intel will reap heavy margins in the long term due to two different brands into two different categories, one being PC and the other one being cell phones. The cons to this solution is Intel will lose a huge future market in the cell phone processor and chipset industry. Because it's an intense pocket industry, a failure in the cell phone category will shrink the margins in the PC category. Our third alternative would be not doing anything, just no action or staying in the status quo. This means that the current efforts will continue at the same level. We will protect our core business and product margins. Venturing into mobile chipsets market will require a large cash infusion and take a significant amount of research and development time. And now, David is going to talk to us about which alternative we decided to go with.
Thank you very much, Esther. Now, I'm probably going to present the recommendation that we came upon for this Intel business situation. So recommendation is divided into two parts. First, we want to create a subsidiary brand, which is going to be under the parent brand of Intel. This brand will be backed up by the quality standards and the R&D capabilities and resources that have made Intel successful in the past. This means that we will be able to use existing knowledge. We will be able to build upon our strong ARM chip division, which is currently producing chips for handheld computers. But even though it's not the same as mobile phones, these chips are still small enough and power efficient that can be built upon and improved on to be used for the mobile phone industry. Other added benefits is that we can use existing distribution channels, and we can also speak with customers that we have worked well in the past with, like Dell, for example. We can sell our mobile phone chips to Dell because they're incursioning in both the PC and the mobile phone industries. The other part of our recommendation is to do something that we have done well in the past, which is co-op advertising program. So as you recall, my partner Sora spoke about this. It's mainly about incentivizing OEMs to adopt our mobile phone chips and place our secondary brand logos in their advertisement and product packaging. All of this is going to be done in exchange for advertising dollars. We will also launch our own in-house direct-to-consumer advertising campaign, which is going to be for our subsidiary brand, and it's going to focus on how customers and the type of things that they will be able to achieve if they use our chips into their cell phones. These days cell phones are becoming more integrated and there are increasing processing needs inside of the phone. So our advertising program is going to make customers realize all the benefits that our chips can bring up to them. So among the main benefits that we can see in this plan, the main one is that we're not going to be missing out on taking advantage of the current trends in the PDA and mobile cell phone industry. As Stephen mentioned, over the past 5 years, we have seen a tremendous increase in the amount of mobile phones that have been sold, and the PC industry is stagnating. It's becoming mature. So it is up to our benefit. It is about our benefit to go into the mobile phone so we can reap higher profits in the future. My team and I, we have a shared vision of the potential of cell phones in the market. So there will be requirements for higher processing speed. So we need to start investing heavily to get more market share in this industry. Moreover, if we're successful, we will also be able to develop a significant brand that will let us diversify our portfolio in the future. And in case incursion into the mobile phone industry doesn't go as planned, the main benefit of this strategy is that we will be able to separate our parent brand of the subsidiary brand. Will allow us to protect our main brand from potential dilution. In that way, PC chip sales will not receive much of an impact. Among the potential risks is that there might be a slower than anticipated adoption of cell phone, especially those that require higher processing capabilities. And we also need to make sure that we do not divest too many of our R&D resources so much that it will end up harming the PC chips portfolio, because this is still our main source of revenue and we're going to be relying on that cash flow to sustain all our future investment in the mobile phone industry. And finally, why didn't we choose the other alternatives? Well, we decided not to go with Intel Inside strategy because our main concern is that it might have diluted the brand that we have worked so long to build. In case the cell phone chip business doesn't go as planned, it is up to our best interest to keep some distance between the parent brand and this new subsidiary brand that we're creating. We're also unclear if cell phone users will care about what is actually inside of their devices. As we have currently made them aware of what is inside of their computers in the past, it might not go as well with mobile phones. Our other alternative, which is keeping the status quo or keep doing what we're doing best right now, is not a great option either, because we might get stuck on this mature market and we'll be missing out on the opportunity to potentially reap huge future profits in the mobile phone industry. So now I'm gonna hand it over to my partner Anurag, which is gonna explain you in detail of our plan of action to implement this strategy we just recommended. Thank you.
Thanks, David. After thoroughly evaluating our alternatives, we have come up with a solid action plan to conquer the portable digital devices market. So we should first identify the customer needs from the cell phones in terms of the applications they need, and then develop a superior technological product. Since that several OEMs in the PC categories already manufacture these cell phones and handheld devices, we should identify those manufacturers and pitch the mobile processors and chipsets to these OEMs under a different brand name, so that Intel will have its strength in the PC market as well as in the mobile phones market. So we have to come up with new creative incentive plans so that OEMs sign our contract and have their devices built with Intel chips. So we should continuously keep coming up with new generations of its mobile chips and customize them as per the needs of the market. Yeah, here is the project management dashboard to track the task status, budget, timelines, and the pending items. So we have clearly defined 10 to 12 tasks which are supposed to be done before the launch of our new product. So you can see the dashboard. So what is our plan B, or the contingency plan? Focus on our old business. The biggest risk associated with extending our brand is diluting the equity we have established in the PC market. So the steps to come back if our plan fails are: we should continue to develop our Pentium brand and keep the momentum going in the PC market, because it accounts for 50% of our revenue. And then we should control our products where they are placed to enhance the accessibility and availability of them. build stronger relations with the consumers by working closely with the end users, develop unique marketing tactics for communicating and engaging the consumers with the brand, and adapt to different cultural aspects of different markets and customize our chips accordingly. Thank you all for being part of this presentation.